We got.
And do you want to wander out here?
Sure.
Okay. Straight to Mickey's. Oh.
Yeah.
Mickey.
Okay, now it's just not.
Yeah, so I just.
Here we are live.
Okay, fabulous.
This is rolling.
Okay, we're live, guys. Your mics on?
Mics are on.
Mics.
Yes.
I hope so. Is it picking up okay? Okay, let's call the meeting to order. It's our coordinates Houseless Response Office meeting. We couldn't have it last month, so we're having it today, November 7th, and it will go through till 11:30. First, we want to have approval of our minutes. Is there a motion?
I would move approval of our minutes.
I will second. Thank you, Andrew. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Approval of our financials. Is there a motion there?
I move approval of our financial report.
Is there a second?
Do we, I want to just review those, right? Do we need to approve?
Well, we should vote on it still, review. Is there a second for
I'll
our,
make a second. Probably.
thank you, Jeff. Okay, any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, now we have time for our public input. We have put it at the first of our meeting. Do we have any forms for people to fill out if they do public input, Eric?
We don't. We can.
Okay, all right. So is there anyone in the room that cares to make public input at this time? There's no one in the room. Is there anyone with a raised hand online?
No, I just see staff online.
Okay, so we just. No one, all right, so we just gained back 15 minutes. All right, so let's then go to item number 5. It looks like Tammy and Scott Acuff are on.
Yes, and I have Eric Nelson with me today. Scott is unfortunately out of the office right now. So we're just gonna show. Sure.
All right.
Yes, sir. Oh, thank you. Good morning, thank you for having us. In your packet is the PowerPoint presentation that we're going to go through. This is the same one that was in the close variation that was in the October packet. For those that are following along, this was requested of us to come back with an outline of the potential evolution of this work into possibly the work of the Regional Housing Council in a broader framework that meets both the state's objective of working regionally as well as honors and keeps the great work that this body has been doing as well. So going into the PowerPoint presentation, next slide, please. Who's my, okay, thank you, Eric. Okay, excellent. So as we all know, and some of this I know is a repeat, so we won't spend too much time on it. This is the outline essentially of the Coordinated Houseless Response Office background, funding provided through the state as a pilot for some key objectives to achieve, able to provide the high-level coordination, centralized communication, strategic visioning, etc., and creating a more equitable, accessible, and responsive system for those experiencing homelessness in the area. Moving on to the next slide, please. So, of course, there are some changes on the horizon. At the same time that we were standing up the Coordinated Houseless Response Office, a year 2, we ended up with a change in leadership of the state. Our governor now is moving toward more of a model that is regional rather than just looking at one county as a pilot. So those House Bill 4123 pilots that were regional or within their service array areas, those are moving forward. However, those that were not aligned with the region are actually needing to evolve, shall we say. So next slide, please. This is the graphic that we are hoping to align a little bit better. The number of meetings and efforts of many of you in this room seated at many of these tables, looking to address the crisis of homelessness that we have in our area. And so this is an effort to not dilute any of those efforts. It's actually an effort to align them in a more strategic fashion so that we spend more or less time in meetings and more time doing. Next slide, please. So what are we trying to build? We're trying to build a continuum. And part of that continuum is everything from the unhoused crisis that we have all the way to homeownership. And so the housing continuum is a concept that is looking at different types of services and supports and helping people to move into the right areas of that continuum that celebrates and honors where they particularly are versus trying to have a one-size-fits-all service array for those that are in need. Next slide, please. In looking at aligning Central Oregon's housing continuum, we are trying as a region, and when I say we, that's sort of a collective we. Many of you are part of that we. We at COIC, one of the roles that we play in the region is aligning efforts, looking for ways to leverage services, leverage resources, find efficiencies, and so that we are not wasting time, but we are actually maximizing those investments. And so started in 2018, developed in 2019, had a bit of a hiatus, is the Regional Housing Council, which is an effort that is comprised of all of the elected bodies across the region, including the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs, alongside our housing authority, our community action agency. Also in the room, we have the Builders Association, the Realtors. Gosh, you pick an organization. It's a very broad, it's a collective impact model, so it's come one, come all. And it's an opportunity to talk about everything from housing or homelessness to homeownership. The Homeless Leadership Coalition, we of course have Eliza Wilson, who is on your board, and that is a continuum of care. That is a HUD designation. That is the federal investment into the community, which has outlined goals and outcomes that they are required to achieve. And so that also is an important component to the framework that we have in front of you. In addition to that, we have the multi-agency committee, which is the governor's executive order committee that stood up 2 years ago. And that is to align, distribute, fund, and hopefully achieve outcomes to address the unhoused crisis in our region. Hence the discussion around the pilots of 4123, moving into a more regional framework. So it mentions here the participation in those efforts. And ideally, it would be great if we had the same electeds in those seats, but that of course is up to each one of your respective councils and commissions. But we do have elected representation at the Regional Housing Council as well as currently at the Coordinated Houseless Response Office. So next slide, please. So this is what we are proposing. And at the end of this presentation, we will talk about the most recent conversation that happened at the Regional Housing Council meeting. And so it's looking to improve access to resources and services, again, keeping all of these goals that you have outlined in the coordinated slide. Oh, sorry, Houseless Response Office, thank you. Allows for a more equitable, accessible, and responsive system. And I do want to make sure that you know that we hear you, making sure that everything that you have started, the funding that you have remaining, the data that you have invested in, the efforts that are required, the reporting to the state for your pilots, making sure that we are not investing your dollars into other areas of the region. All of those things are pieces that are considered in this framework as well. And again, we can chat about that at the end. So next slide, please. Let's see. So the subcommittee would be essentially continuing the work that we have today, which is CYC alongside the loaned exec from the city of Bend and Eric. We are continuing to staff the work that you all are needing to have done. We are continuing to staff.
Sorry, just.
It's okay.
Go ahead,
Really?
you can keep going.
Okay, excellent, thank you. So, yeah, we want to continue to staff those and make sure that none of the efforts that all of the efforts that we are continuing to be a part of continue to move forward. Because it is the same team, we don't see that there would be any hitches in the giddy up, if you will, a rather seamless transition. And being able to make sure that we are keeping with your strategic efforts, making sure that we are aligning that with the broader framework that we are building, and I say we, that's a collective we, for across the region, which is building a continuum, again, that is a place to talk about, advocate for, leverage, learn, and drawing more resources to support everything from the unhoused crisis, again, to home ownership in the region. And so the benefits of doing this, of course, would be it's a best practice, an opportunity for us to align those efforts in a more strategic fashion. It honors the transition that is happening with the House Bill 4123 pilots. It retains the responsibilities that you have to the state of Oregon for your pilot, as well as blends that in and actually allows that to lead the effort in the region to address the unhoused crisis. So the timeline, if we could go to the next slide, please.
There's actually an error on here. It says the 45 acre project, the PSSA. That's actually 40 acres the first year and then 20 the next with the city and the county.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. So what we are proposing is the evolution of the Coordinated Houseless Response Office to create a framework that is a regional subcommittee of the Regional Housing Council that would continue the strategic and specific discussions around unhoused issues in the region. That would be fed into the Regional Housing Council, which is the body that will also be looking at advocating for and leveraging their collective voice as well as intellect toward drawing in additional funds to address the housing or the gaps in funding, whether that's policy changes, whether that's legislative activity at the state or federal level. So it would be an opportunity to take the more focused effort on homelessness and continue the work that has already started, and then have that as an input into what is it that you all need to be making sure that the state and federal government understand as our gaps and needs to be able to leverage your collective elected voices toward drawing those funds for policy changes or not. Maybe there's something that you want to make sure doesn't happen collectively at that table. So with that, no, it's fine.
So Tammy, on this
Yes.
current slide to the right, where you're saying 10 tiny homes Oasis Village, I know they have 5 of those in process for completion this year and then 5 more for next year. And this said it's unknown timing. I just.
Yeah, so for some of this will evolve. What we want to make sure is that we are capturing that the work that is currently happening, whether that's 5 or 15, is going to continue to happen. There will not be a stall out or a stop of any of the investments that you have already started to invest in. And what it actually does is then braids that with the ability for the MAC funding, which is already happening as well, in a more strategic way. Instead of conversations happening here and at the MAC, they actually happen together, and funding that might be not eligible through the MAC would be able to be offsetting some of the costs that would be helping to leverage what it is that you might want to invest in as the Coordinated Houseless Response Office members at that table.
So having us meet together would be one of those silos that you talk about breaking down. So we actually understand where the MAC dollars funding ideology is
Exactly.
in relationship to.
Exactly.
I thought Dean Swift says if money received. I thought we already approved.
So this is a slide from October early.
Okay.
So again, forgive me for not making that
Okay,
more
just wanted to be sure.
accurate for today, where we are.
So where are we with Dean Swift then today?
I can do yeah, sorry.
So the procurement is complete, and so the contract is being negotiated for the units. And as part of that process.
Oh, you should identify yourself for the record.
Oh,
too.
I'm sorry, Amy Fraley with the City of Bend. And we are hoping to have that program up and running on all 6 units by the end of this year,
By 12/31.
2024.
Thank you, Amy. I just think you did, I don't have all the projects in my brain. You have a lot. But there's a lot there, but unfortunately there's yes. So thank you for the assist.
Of course.
What was the financing behind that? How much?
Well, as a matter of fact, last night, the city council took action on a new homeless services grant program that's gonna allocate a total of $3 million of existing ARPA funds to various programs. So we're meeting with providers today, and they'll be able to adjust their budget and request the full amount for 2 years of operation in conjunction with the period. It is the intent of the city to go ahead and return essentially the 131 that came from the CHRO, so that they directly allocated if you choose to a provider, just kind of taking the city out of the middle on that one. And so,
So you, $131,000 you're gonna return to us?
yes, that is what you allocated. I think it was 131.5.
Yep.
But what we figured it would just be easier for the CHRO to allocate those funds directly through a provider instead of city.
Okay, so you guys are taking care of that one.
Totally take care of that one.
Okay, no, that's great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then I'm hoping to come before the county in 2 weeks to talk about that 400,000 match with the city for the case management.
I just have a question, and you all might know the answer to this, but so Tammy, where do these kind of quality control policy questions come up that are coming up today in this moment? Where do those occur?
So if it's specific to the
I was
members,
just saying, yeah, just the kind of questions we just got. And where, what form is that?
it would be just a broader table. So some of the members at that table would be, it would be relative, it would be relevant to them. But they would be hearing the investments that happen in their sister communities. And they would be hearing also of some of the things that they possibly could be in the community. And so those conversations would be happening at that meeting.
So. Just trying to wrap my head around this. Are you saying that in this model, as a subcommittee, the makeup would be broader of the CHRO?
Correct.
Okay, and you're saying it would include. I guess I don't understand that from these slides. You want the CHRO to be RHC? Do you, like, is that the membership of the future membership of the CHRO, or is it people from HLC, MAC, RHC? I don't quite understand.
So the Regional Housing Council is everything from homelessness to homeownership.
Yep, I got that.
Electeds, and then from there, you have the Homeless Leadership Coalition, and then you have the MAC, which is evolving. But under the Regional Housing Council, you have a subcommittee that actually is addressing all of the things that you discussed here today. We would be blending that in with the MAC to be able to talk about the homelessness crisis in the region together. But they would not be dictating to these members what you would be spending your limited dollars.
So the MAC and the CHRO would become one. Is that what you're?
Technically, yes. Go ahead. Yeah, do you want to, do you have a better way of describing it?
I think I can answer your question, Councilor Perkins. So Eric Nelson, Housing Specialist, COIC. I think the structure that's being proposed here as a subcommittee would essentially leave the decision-making power of this board relatively intact, right? But what it would add is some of the context regionally that I think we need here in order to understand, like, what is everybody doing? Amy is here today, Linda is at the Regional Housing Council, right? And so some of the efforts that are being done in the cities around Deschutes County, I think bringing that to a subcommittee that is slightly broader, but still maintaining, because you will still be deciding things for Deschutes County and for your cities, right? We can't change that. We don't have a mechanism to change that. So that part is going to remain the same. It's just under this framework where there's more regional input about other efforts that are happening in the region across the MAC and the HLC and in your individualized localities. Does that sort of answer your question?
Not really, sorry.
So part two of that question, we're still deciding things for the county and our cities, but we have a more regional voice that we're talking to. Where does the metal hit the road when the other voices are not in agreement with what we feel we need in our own backyard?
So they wouldn't be able to dictate how you would spend your own time. It's just like at the Regional Housing Council, the body doesn't dictate what the city of Bend or the city of Metolius does. It's an opportunity to learn from each other about what you are doing. And an idea might be that you have the broader table, which is comprised of everyone who's doing work around the homelessness crisis, including yourselves. And maybe we create a subcommittee of that where you all decide, okay, we just heard all of this. We want to be able to spend our dollars on that. And then you give us direction on how you want that to be implemented. I think what we're sharing is that this is very pliable in terms of creating something that is a broader table, which is a requirement by the state, and honors your the great work that you have done and where you want your work to continue to go.
So
Go ahead.
So future state funding comes to the MAC,
Correct.
right? It would not come to us.
Correct.
In our current or future state. And then so the CHRO would just be responsible for spending down the money that we already have. There would not be any more future allocation under this model for the CHRO
Correct.
because we are not. Okay, that's
But what I do want to add is that the majority of the MAC funding has gone to the communities within the Corporate
Sure, I
Housing Response Office. So it just aligns that a little bit differently. It definitely would dilute.
In an effort to braid, I mean, this would be a mechanism for you to do that, you know, is to maintain a subcommittee with these other voices in there saying, well, we're also having money come in this way. Is this a way for you to take some of your CHRO money and braid it to these other efforts? Which we've gotten here in these meetings for sure. We just heard some of it from the city of Bend. But it more regionally, you might also start hearing some of those things because there are folks in Madras and in Crook County who are also undertaking some of their own efforts. And if those things are going to affect, like, let's say Redmond, for example, then those would be conversations that could add to this conversation.
What I don't understand is once the funding that we currently have is finished, what point is there for us
So
being involved?
I think that, so we recently met with the MAC group, about that and like how we see, how providers see, aligning efforts. And I think that we do want you at the table to hear what we're doing regionally, but also in Shoes County, and for you to have input. And I think that your voices and your ability to advocate on behalf of providers, like for your specific like cities and is really important. So it is a way to involve you even when maybe in the future CHRO wouldn't be something that would continue. So it would be to like align you now before, you know, to keep you guys involved.
Well, and we've always had a 5-year sunset. So
Right.
we had a 5-year budgetary allotment and burden for that, of which we have 2 years left. So in some aspects, finding a way to braid this with the Regional Housing Council and find a way to continue our work beyond that sunset makes some sort of sense. It's just the fluidity of it is a little awkward, I still think.
I just struggle about not wanting to just go to a meeting once a month and talk. Like the whole point of the CHRO is action oriented, and so like I don't want this to be like I don't think it's much of a value for us to just sit in a meeting once a month and hear reports from the MAC group and the this and that. So I would want to make sure that the evolution includes some form of action from the elected officials that are on the board, and I think that's something that we've really stepped into that, you know, over this past year and a half of saying like, look, we need outdoor shelter, we're gonna do this, this, and this. And if we're sitting there and just sort of
Sitting there.
hearing, yeah,
Yeah.
sitting there, like, it's
Sitting there.
that's not a good, I think, use of anyone's time. It's just another group, you know, another meeting to attend. So I understand why we do need to do this. I just want to make sure that we're protecting the original intent of this, even if we do, as we do sunset, as we evolve. So that's,
I agree with that. I haven't been on regional housing council. It has been a lot of planning and talking, and we don't have actual activity or content except for how we want to redo other things. And that concerns me to some degree because it's the action items we need to start seeing.
And that's where we are at this point in time, and the fact that Deschutes County has the most of the homeless. I mean, what are the numbers? Do we have 85% of the homeless in our region? It's unbelievable. Thank goodness the city and the county are working together on our temporary safe parking location, because I got the report from Van Fire. There were 79 transient fires that Van Fire dealt with this year to date, 79 fires. Thank goodness we're gonna do something, and we're pulling that together now, and then we're pulling something together with Redmond. I just feel like we really have the numbers that are critical, and we are the leaders of our county, and I just feel like we really need to make sure that something actually gets done. I look at, you know, some of the projects and how long it takes, and somebody's got to be pushing them, and it doesn't work otherwise. So I know we've been working hard with Redmond. We meet almost every 2 weeks. Commissioner Chang and I alternate that. We're actually going to get something done in Redmond. We know we've got the pressure of a 20-year goal to land swap, 20 years now. And so I really believe that we're going to get something done shortly by next spring. And then with the city, we've also got a deadline and a timeline there. And I feel like having this group just evolve into another group, this moment in time really isn't quite appropriate. Maybe in another year it would be, but right now we're seriously impacting what's going to happen in Deschutes County. We have got to remove that number, that dangerous 79 fires, and we've got to get that under control next spring. And I believe that the city and the county are, closely working on that.
And those, you raise great points, Commissioner, and that doesn't change the opportunity for you to meet alongside your cities to have specific conversations about investments. I think that what happens at this table is that you have an opportunity to talk about an effort, and then that ends up being, which is a great thing, among your full councils and full commissions for you to actually work out the details and solidify those commitments. And so all of that would continue to be able to happen. What this table would be able to bring you is an opportunity to hear from a broader perspective of those that are doing the work every day, to share with you how those investments can actually be leveraged in their work that they're currently doing, similar to what Eliza mentioned in terms of the efforts of the service providers, which is relatively limited at this table.
I have a comment, if I may.
If you would identify yourself for this.
Yes, Molly Heiss.
Neighbor impact.
Huh?
Neighbor impact.
That's not where I was going. I just want to mention that best practice in the continuum of care work for a very long time has been that the elected officials are engaged. You all engaging in the CRO has proven the reasoning behind that, in that you have the capacity, audacity, and power to get stuff done. Right now, you have funding behind you. There's funding that's connected to the MAC group that may go on. There's continuum of care funding. Having you at the table lends just, I mean, look at the work that we've got done. It's not really necessarily all based on getting that funding. It's based on all of you being at the table. So there's value. I know that another meeting is not ideal, but it's incredibly impactful to have you all engaged in this effort in this way. And I think funding or not, it's still valuable to have you engaged because of your influence.
Thank you.
So, where would you like to go?
Well, I would like you to carry on with your presentation and talk about the funding that you do see coming in, so we know what that looks like and where that is housed. Okay, compared to what we have currently. That seems to be a large portion for the rest of us.
So yeah, these are the slides that we can go through that are going to show relatively small, and these are the investments that are being made through the multi-agency coordinating committee.
Which slide do you want the
Um,
one?
Well, I'm cautious of us getting into too detailed as how these dollars have currently been, because these dollars are already obligated and
Yeah, I just broad overview of what is out there, what we could impact. I think what everybody here wants to hear is if we were to do something of this nature. And again, to Molly's point, we want to continue to have the power of the advocacy and the impact that we currently have. And even when I look at your initial slide and you were showing where we were sitting, we were really a subcommittee in that slide because everything went this way and that way, and we were here. And regional housing was here and there was no back and forth between that committee. So again, are we at the table or are we in the corner is a very big, important thing to know.
homelessness is one part of a continuum that our region needs in order to address the housing crisis. And so already the Coordinated Houseless Response Office is a smaller portion of the broader discussion, which really is how do we get the type of housing that we need in the region to meet the needs of those that are here. The most powerful table that is set is the Regional Housing Council table, which is comprised of all of the elected officials leaning in on everything that is impacting the housing crisis in the region. So instead of, I would take Councilor Zwicker, your thought being here and reverse it in that at the Regional Housing Council table, you'd be able to say to the state of Oregon, we have X amount of dollars that are coming into our region to address homelessness, but we need this flexibility within those dollars, and we need X amount of dollars to fill these gaps we're currently not filling. And oh, by the way, if we don't do that, that is going to create an issue in these other areas of our housing continuum that is keeping us from the prosperity and the workforce that we need in order to have our economy continue to thrive. So the table of the Regional Housing Council is the space where this body would lift those efforts and say, our service providers, our community action agency, the housing authority, those doing this work every day are going to be able to say, this is what we need based on not just the research, but the actual lived experience of those doing the work, and filter that to the body that has the most power to align your voice and say, this is what we need to the legislature, this is what we need to HUD, this is what we need to our federal delegation, and actually create that space of leveraging your voice toward really drawing in the funds that are needed to address the overall crisis, not just the housing or the homelessness crisis.
And to that point, do you feel the Regional Housing Council has set the table to do that? Because again, they have just in this last year put together a strategic plan and started moving forward. So they too, as a pilot project, are just coming out of the ground stronger than they had been. But the table wasn't set when I arrived. So I'm wondering if you really think it is now.
So they're on meeting 5? 6, okay.
And then will be the 6th meeting.
So they've, and I would turn that to you as the elected officials and to our community action agency and to HLC and to the housing authority. That table is your table to create the voice in which you're talking about right now. That table gets to be what it is that you need it to be in order to have a voice that is going to change. So that was requested to hold off so that the Coordinated Housing Response Office could get itself aligned and really build the strength that you have been able to build. And that is the table in which it's up to you all to determine how strong, what direction, and to what degree you want to affect change using your voice there.
So I think here's the issue, right? You've got, I'm just saying the passive observer. You've got the crow that feels they've got influence, they've gotten outcomes and actions, and their hand on the wheel on these things. And you've got the Regional Housing Council, which hasn't proven that it's going to be as effective model as the crow is to homelessness.
Sure.
And I think, to have the real conversation today,
yeah,
we need to talk about reassuring the electeds that the Regional Housing Council will be this robust model that's going to have as much influence and action and progress as the Crow has had. And we realized everyone knows the Crow hasn't been the perfect model, but
Sure.
how do you bridge that gap of what they feel right now their role is going to be and what their role would be with an emerging, but still fairly young policy group?
Sure, it's simple. The same people doing the work that you're currently seeing as success, are the same people that are staffing the Regional Housing Council and can make it where whatever and however you want it to be. There's not like a different, I mean, we are staffing those achievements on your behalf. So I don't know how else to say that the work is going to continue to the degree that you want it to happen with your investment of time and effort to the degree that you choose to be involved.
Can I ask you, Kat? So far, I haven't seen that in the Regional Housing Council. I haven't seen the vigor that I would want to feel comfortable doing that, but that is undoubtedly why, when it was formed, we were asked to be on it.
You were asked, but not me.
Oh, I
Yes.
thought, Crow Board was all invited to
No.
participate.
No, I.
Oh, okay.
You actually were, all of the original ask was that the members of the Crow would be the same members
Yeah.
of the Regional.
I
Housing
remember
Council.
that ask.
So
And so I guess
Get to
that
my
was,
desk.
okay.
To answer Counselor Blum's question, and this is why I asked the question I did, they are in that creative process. Of which we were in for the last 2 years, so
Absolutely.
I understand this.
We're way beyond it.
We are beyond that now, but we also have another 18 months to 2 years in limited funding, so I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, just for a lack of any better colloquialism. I want to make sure that I don't have to reinvent the wheel. I don't want to be talked to, and I feel like that's how we have felt for the first 3 meetings that we were talked at and not invited to, and we were guided through a process that was redundant. And I didn't enjoy it at all, I'll just be honest. So I think that we need to have further assurances that, if we're gonna have impactful voices at the table, that there are ways that we are being engaged at that table other than a process of schooling us down the strategic plan process, which we already have and have done.
It seems like
So, yeah.
the combination is a year early. Of course, we have, 5 years? We've got another year, and then maybe at the end of next year, we could go together. But right now, it seems like we actually have action items that we're working on. We need to get them accomplished. And since I'm not on that group, I have no idea, but I will,
No, I think there's benefit. I'm not gonna say there's not a benefit for filling the gaps, for getting rid of some of the siloed conversations, which again, I haven't seen yet, because I'm still seeing a lot of silos between providers, between funding and between electeds. And it's really hard to have those conversations be engaging unless they're happening independently at the cities, which is where we fix ours with Redmond. And I'd like to see that more regionally happen. We're not there yet. And so that would be interesting and it would be intriguing to me. So there are some benefits here that I can really see that could make us more coordinated across the region. I'm not gonna say they don't exist. Not there yet, is what I wanna, so I don't know what that path forward looks like. I do understand the necessity, and I do think it's a necessity that we need to look at of making sure that we could continue our work beyond that 5-year if we do engage in some fashion here, because now we can access further funding for our communities, plus have a regional footprint that takes our lessons learned to Crook County and Jefferson and outlier rural areas that need the help that they can't find on their own. So I don't want to say no to something where we could be more impactful in that way either, as long as we're taking care of our home backyards.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a good idea, and but I want to get back to the original intent of the Crow, which was getting all of us talking and working together and having an coordinated office. And what we're all doing is talking and working together. I mean, what we've done, all of us, over the past year and a half is do exactly what the original intent of the Crow was. And I think we're all just really protective of that because we finally feel like, we're doing it, we're getting it done, we're working together. And so I think that's just what we're feeling right now is that protection. And
I
I,
think too, there's a lot of emotion in it.
yeah. I think one of the things that it seems like we kind of need to like flush this out a little bit more, like in all of our minds. But one of the things I'm a little like concerned about is I feel like we're in this like weird spot right now between the county and COIC. And like in terms of staff and like where our money comes from. I know that like that 131, it was like really difficult to figure out like how that was actually gonna get to the city. And so I would love like a little bit, and I don't know if that's just, we have to just wait until we figure this all out. But sort of, where are we? Like, where do we sit right now? I know we never actually officially completed the transition to COIC. And so it feels a little funny being in this like middle spot. And maybe we just have to wait until we figure out what the evolution is, but I just wanted to give voice to that too.
So a couple of comments, and I appreciate, one of the frustrations I would feel is you are miles ahead of many other partners in the region in terms of your alignment of addressing the unhoused crisis. And so that feeling at a broader table with broader context of a continuum of housing, the Regional Housing Council is going to feel really stagnant because it's not moving as quickly as, first of all, this is immediate. Building workforce and homeownership housing opportunities for our communities is a longer game type of discussion. The other is working on collective impact building is time consuming and tedious in bringing people together instead of dictating what it is that they are being brought to be part of. And I struggle with facilitated meetings. I struggle with the sort of storming, norming, forming of the thing. So I feel that for you, for the Regional Housing Council. We are at a place where now you've developed a context of how you will build on that, what framework you're going to use as your model, how you will engage legislatively on the things that you wanted to be able to be leaning in on, this being one of those primary goals. And you have an opportunity now to turn that to the actions that you want to be seeing, to the level and degree that you want to have it at the table. And so I just want to recognize that I feel your pain in that struggle of developing something new. And we've watched it here. This too has been really tedious.
But let me give you
And-
some context on the TDM. When we had to do our bylaws, our strategic plan and all of that, the electeds were engaged in that.
Yeah.
When those things are getting created at the Regional Housing Council, they're being brought back by staff. We have a facilitated session where for one night of a month where people throw thoughts out to us and then they come back and here's where we got from that. Then they go back and vote again. So what we're having is 2 hours of a session and then 30 days and somebody comes back and provides a product to us for approval. Where I feel like we all broke down and took buy-in to everything that went into every section of those to make sure that we were collaborative, that we were working on that continuum and we were coordinating as a region for Deschutes County and when the cities in the county. That's where we need to get with the Regional Housing Council. And it's not, that's what I think we're very afraid of, because right now, positioning wise, I know Councilor Blum and Councilor Perkins and I have all been there, and I think Commissioner Chang snuck out. Is he still there? No. So he has been there, and I feel like in those meetings, you know, we're not at that level of participation that we are here for directing what that looks like. So it's one thing to be at the table, it's another to be engaged at the table. That's the part we're missing.
Yeah, there was a chomping at the bit when we started. Let's go, let's go, let's go. What can we do? How can we do it? We're there. Whereas the Regional Housing Council, it's, well, a bunch of people who were invited to get together to see if there was something that needed to be done and how to do that. I don't think the people that came, other than potentially those of us, came with a, yes, this is a crisis, this is something important, we've got to get doing, and so the people did not push it. They did not come with energy, they did not come with ideas, they did not come with a philosophy, any of that. So staff has just had to drag it out. Drag it every time, you know, move them forward instead of them demanding that something be done and you guys have to do that for us. You have to figure out how we're gonna do that. So the urgency of the participation is just not there. And I still think that the majority of the people in that room are going, well, what is this gonna do? Where is this gonna go? How is this gonna help? I don't think they see the vision yet. And they don't see it as important. So it's really hard to say, okay, we're gonna, we're gonna merge with this group because statewide dynamically, this is the way we have to go. So on the one hand, I recognize, okay, that's the structure that is going to be the most appropriate for what we eventually want to be able to do. And what we're doing, the structure we're in now is not. So maybe we're just a little early, maybe we, but how do we get that urgency
They need to.
into the Regional Housing Council?
Yeah, you need to actually, because we're doing so many things at Regional Housing Council. You have your legislative policy piece. We have this, it seems frenetic and non-directed to me. It's too many different things going on instead of subcommittees coming back with information that they could share with the group. If we've studied, we've done, this is where we align with what we talked about last time, next group. If that was what this group would become, and we could have that type of direction and that type of impact, you might have broader engagement and more excitement at that level. That's what I'm, this is a type of conversation that's helpful. And I think we can have that at the Regional Housing Council. I don't think we can't, but even now we're not even engaging in person. Most of our meetings are going offline to Zoom, and you will lose this. This will no longer be a part of that because we'll all be at home at 5:30 at night with our fuzzy slippers on and a puppy in the background. And I don't know that that's engaged.
So
Definitely not.
what I'd say is that you do have an opportunity to start crafting that now. I mean, the last Regional Housing Council meeting really did focus on the development of subcommittees. Of this possibly being one of them, and subcommittee on houselessness that incorporated, your participation. We also discussed having a staff subcommittee where, the different members of the RHC do, dedicate some of their staff time, like Linda or maybe Amy or whomever you designate to participate in action items that you are looking to see some development on, some of the things that we've talked about today, perhaps. So I think with that desire, to develop these subcommittees at the Regional Housing Council, you have a good opportunity here to start that now where it hasn't already begun.
I used
As
to
opposed
put
to-
that meeting on a debate night, or I think I might have attended. It
Or possibly even in a year when those subcommittees have already been established and then you're trying to incorporate yourself into an existing structure. What you have right now is an opportunity you won't have in a year because of the strategic planning process that's going on in the region. Some of the.
So I'm gonna rewind what you just said.
Yeah.
Did you all hear that clearly? You're having a one and done opportunity here. We won't have this opportunity to engage at the table as the coordinated.
So you're saying that
in a year.
there's another subcommittee on homelessness, or I guess I don't understand.
No, what I'm trying to say is that there are no subcommittees right now, but there might be in a year.
Yeah.
That you would be joining an existing structure versus starting a new structure. And there's gonna be a lot more development in a year, that may change the landscape quite a bit. And
We could sneak in and take.
so there's a difference between.
What it looks like. Yeah.
More that than what.
But what I'm saying is this is our opportunity to be at the ground floor.
Okay.
And a year
Create what you
we
want it
will
to
not
be.
have that opportunity.
Even though I don't see there's that on the Regional Housing Council that want to take on homelessness.
Yeah,
I
again,
think that's why having a subcommittee is so beneficial, because I agree with you. There are people that sit at that table that are like, we don't want to talk about this.
Yeah.
And not in
Yeah.
the community center.
Yeah.
And then also, we're not
I
talking
think
about it
that-
because you all are talking
Yeah.
about it
So
already.
I think creating the subcommittee to be what you want it to be, and with, the HLC, with providers, I think creating it to be the action items, because we just acknowledging that that is more work. But I think that being involved now, instead of waiting until after the strategic plan, we of course will incorporate the CHRO, like Deschutes County strategic plan into the regional strategic plan because all of that work happened and it was important and impactful. But I want the committee to be action as well. Because I think it's rough sitting through meetings that we don't walk away with any action, with any work.
Yeah, I mean, we've had the homeless council since 2011? And what I'm seeing now when I'm out in the field is that there are actually way more women out there that are homeless. And what is your group that group done to attack that issue that more women are homeless? What are we doing? Yeah, the HLC, yeah.
So that's-
If it's more women are homeless, what are we doing? I'm seeing that, I've been seeing that this year, and I'm going, okay, what are we doing? Trying to get some funding for Shepherd's House. They've got a project for women and children, and they already have a very small project, but they definitely need to increase it because that's all I saw the other, a couple months ago when I was out. It's really, and I'm hearing it from other meetings too. And then like Jeff, you haven't said much. I know you have the prerogative today, but talking to someone from Lapine and they're telling me they're doing all this phenomenal cleanup on BLM land. And I'm going, guys, if you're gonna clean it up, you better put boulders out because I've been here long enough to know that they will go back out. Even, that's what they kept telling me and trying to how do we clean it up and then somebody new comes in. So, how much money do we keep spending on something where we're not getting a solution? And the other comment I would add about our joint project is I had said we need to be with people 4 times a week. And now I was just told 2 weeks ago when I was in Eugene, Lane County is saying, oh, Patty, 5's even better. And of course they said, right? But if you want to actually transition people, that's what you have to do. You can't keep spending millions of dollars and not actually accomplishing something. And that's why I believe that we have to accomplish something. The fire numbers were outrageous so far.
Well, Commissioner, that it's not a question. We can all dive into whatever detail we want, whether it's women or fighters or whatever else. The question is, where do you want to have those conversations? Whether it's this group,
Well, I think this group, I've already said,
or
I think this
working
group is
towards blending the two at a, ideally pick a point in time where you want to figure out that if the housing council gets up at the same speed as this group, and when that, right, so it's.
What
it's
is that
kind of
going
a
to be
forward.
though? That's what I'm saying.
Right, no, exactly, that's.
We had so many fires this year and we
But
as a city
again,
county.
That's
If we're talking
regional housing.
about
Fires.
all of the things,
Well,
the regional
we spent a lot
housing
of money on
council
it,
and the MAC and agency, everybody's doing together. And the people at the table, and maybe we are missing some people at the table to have those conversations that we
Absolutely.
brought in the Forest Service, BLM, because, once they get outside of our purview, doesn't mean it ceases to exist, it just means we can't contain it. And we can't help, so we have to actually address those items too, and where are those people at the table? So I think that, again, there's some benefits to be had to have a larger conversation, we just
Absolutely.
can't lose this moment.
Absolutely.
So
Totally
I
agree
would
with you.
totally be in favor of being a very loud and boisterous subcommittee to have that impact. I just don't see the assurance in what I've seen in your diagrams. I really feel that we're very at the bottom and very disconnected.
And I still don't understand who's there and who's not there. I think, and I mentioned this to Eliza a while back, like what would be helpful for me is to really sit down with the RHC or members, a couple of people from the RHC, from the MAC group, from HLC, and say who's doing what and how and where and who's at what table, and because I agree, like, and then there's the public partners roundtable group, and then there's the, and so there's a lot of there's the China Hat pilot, and there's a lot of different groups meeting, and so how can we really understand all of our respective roles? Because I struggle when I don't know what my role is. Is my role just to show up and say, yeah, sounds good, or occasionally offer a City of Bend perspective, or is my role, to do something else? So I think this is I'm in full agreement with Kat. Like, I think we're getting there. We just need to understand better.
We maybe need
Our
a
position.
transition team.
Yeah,
A transition
positioning in all of this, is that
Yes, so that we all understand who's merging with who, who's got the
Yes.
authority, who's, when, what the timing is, you know, so that we're all in the same place and have the same understanding. And so maybe it isn't something that needs to be done today, but maybe have a goal of by March, have a much more understood dynamic.
We'll have 2 more new people on the board,
Exactly.
so thank you for your service.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
So, and your input, and it's been valuable.
Being so engaged on the RHC too.
Yeah, I think that having those steps that you guys just kind of outlined would be extremely important to understanding like what the role should be and like what the you know, how we created an action item, like a meeting that's all around action and collective impact. We just met with the HLC and the MAC group in 2 meetings to talk about alignment, and we talked about State Bureau, not like just obviously decisions, right, and the Regional Housing Council and what we see roles are. And so I think that doing that, I think that was like one of the same days you texted me, which was funny, about like, we should do this. And so I think that that would absolutely be something that, you know, want to have conversations about, because I think that your guys, like what you see would align, it aligns with what the providers are talking about too. So I think that
Oh, and that's interesting because you're having a conversation about a body and a group who's at the table.
Right.
And that's,
Well,
that's kind of what we want to not have happen, is we want that engagement, but we also want to, I mean, we're very much task driven and task oriented.
Yeah.
And each one of us has a certain amount of things we see happen in our own backyard, but we understand the benefit of building our county and our community. So we've been working really well together. And I think that that would continue. I don't have a doubt that it wouldn't. But again, I don't want to just sit in the room, be talked at or talked to, because it takes away from what we've been doing. And again, who's leading the charge? I mean, I can't advocate if I don't actually have an understanding and I'm in the group. And that doesn't happen in some of these meetings. So I want to make sure that we're creating a much stronger proposition. And I think we've talked about that so that we can do it. And as Councilor Blum said, maybe we do need to create a structured framework plan for maybe the next set. And what does that look like? Have other people at the table to help us understand how they feel they're going to work.
Yeah, you know, when people ask, you know, when I show them all the different groups and how they commingle, and I am not that familiar with the difference of who is on what authority they have, where they, you know, where they get their funding. And this is formed because it's different funding, it's different organizational group or whatever, and how they do coordinate. I'm not super clear on that as well. So I think it would be a good educational program for all of us to have a better understanding and see, you know, our background is to have high level coordination and centralized communication and strategic visioning. And I feel like every group kind of has that, but how are we coordinating? I think we do need to have more coordination, and that this is probably the structure that it will take to do it, but the structure is just the supposed right now between where they're at. And so to merge them is kind of an odd matching right now. And so I think that there does need to be more education and transition understanding before it can happen and be a good product.
The fact that the 5 of us that are sitting at this table, and I know, Jeff, you get the emails, we get the phone calls regarding what's going on, and we are actually expected to respond. And what are we doing? And that's the pressure I feel like on a daily basis with what is happening. Immediately get an email, immediately, how many people call me and say, oh my gosh, you know, we just had this, we just had that. And so I feel like we have actually come together, and we are going ahead with a lot of really positive things that will hopefully make a difference. So.
Jeff, you've been on Zoom
Yes.
on some of those
Oh,
meetings.
he's been a person.
Yeah, and so how do you feel Lapine is going to feel about merging into this new, or, you know, do you feel comfortable that we're there yet?
Well, given that we don't know who's gonna be sitting in this chair for the city of Pine in January, it's really hard to speculate on it. Making the assumption that it's gonna be the mayor-elect. I don't know what her opinion's gonna be.
Yeah, she's a newbie enough that she won't know
I
where
think
we
she's
are
gonna
or,
need context and background before she can make that
Right.
decision. But let's just say for the sake of this conversation today, that things were going to be constant. I think that there would be alignment with the voices and opinions that you're sharing here today. That until there's a clear delineation of what the benefit that is going to be, and how that's going to bring value to this body right here, there probably would not be a decision in the affirmative until that was clearly, as I said, delineated. Now, I'm sitting on the RHC as well for the city of Pine. We don't have an elected that's doing it. Personal perspective, I've yielded a benefit from that conversation, particularly in the efforts regarding legislative advocacy. And I see that providing benefit to the interests of the Pine area, not just the city, but greater Pine as we refer to it. But that's just my opinion, like a governmental employee, not an elected, so I'm careful not to give the image that I'm representing the interests of people. Fine, you know, as we all know, I don't need to go into the structures of government, but it's a fine line between the appointed and the elected, right? So I think it's a safe position, and I think it's an educated and informed position to say that, at least with the current council that I have, that they would want to see that benefit and essentially where this group would sit in that continuum of conversation. And not just as a subcommittee. I think that I could speak for everybody to the council right now, which there will be 3 returning. And they would all agree. Does that answer your question?
yes, and and you folks are gonna have to recognize that having new people on this group is going to make a pause. Is gonna, because you're gonna have to bring them up to speed on how has worked and where it fits in. So they're gonna need some care.
Okay, so we're actually sitting at 11:02 this morning. We've been given a motion to vote.
Actually, I don't know that we need to want to make a motion, but I do think we need to create that structure and framework presentation. We have enough questions about where we're going.
Say is.
I don't think we're interested, and I don't want to say a hard firm no. I think what we still don't have is cognitive data showing that we won't just be something that's swept under the rug. Even in the policy pieces that you're showing, we dropped so far to the bottom of the continuum of who's at the table that, granted, all of us are sitting on the Regional Housing Council and can get loud. But we also don't hijack the direction of where that body is supposed to go. I don't think that's appropriate either. So maybe some tweaks to that framework presentation and to bring that back to say, this is exactly what that looks like.
And transition.
Okay, so everyone agrees with that? We need
idea.
what's an agreement that will transition. Okay, we'll go on to the next item then.
Thank
So-
you.
All right, so we
Thank
now
you.
have the update on outdoor living spaces project timeline update. Hi, Kathy.
You had a couple of meetings ago, you had requested for a summary of the strategic funding, the regional funding and also regional projects. And so I collected that data from the City of Bend, Deschutes County, and City of Redmond. And if you have any questions about each jurisdiction, we have Amy Fraley here for the City of Bend projects, Eric Kropp, Deputy Admin from Deschutes County, and City Manager Keith Witkowski just stepped up, but he could answer any questions regarding City of Redmond projects.
Okay, I did have a question. It says, what is it, 662,000 from the county for Juniper Ridge, and I don't think we've actually said a specific amount, have we?
And we'll have Amy Fraley here.
Thank you, Amy.
You're correct.
No,
That was like, where did that ever? Absolutely, we have not been forward and made any type of official request.
I know we were talking about 50-50.
And yep, and you wanted to match it, we're at 400,000, and we'd be happy to present a budget when we come forward, with those 4 times per week.
Yes, 4 times a week, I know.
4 hours, and so, I think the 18th, was that what we said today? 2 Mondays from now?
November 18th. Yeah, yes.
Oh, yeah, oh, yeah.
November 18th,
Yes.
you mean at our next meeting? Okay, because I have to be in, that's County College.
18th, not the 13th.
That's the week of County College in Eugene.
On November.
Or not County College, the AOC convention, our conference.
Right, it starts on the 19th, on that
Oh, we're gonna
Tuesday.
do this on Monday then?
Yeah, so this
I
would
believe
be
so, yeah.
Monday the 18th.
Okay, fabulous.
Yeah.
So we're,
And I would be happy in advance to send you any information that you would.
could you please?
Of course.
Okay, thank you so much. Are there
The
any?
number has evolved.
It has and scaled back, and it just wanted to make that match as you requested.
Okay,
So-
let me know which direction you like.
That, thanks.
I love it. Thank you so much. Yeah, well, we've got to make progress, right? Are there any other questions on here? Thank you for putting this together.
Yeah, thank you. That's great.
What about City of Redmond, Oasis, at 197,500? Is that something that who's done? That came from Mac? Did that come from Mac?
So Keith with Press,
Right.
city manager, city of Brendan, to answer questions about funding for city of Brendan projects.
Okay, Oasis Village, the 197,500. Did that come from the MAP funding or for the pods, or where do we know? where
Yeah, it
that-
came from Mac, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that came from Mac, so they can add more of
Okay, the pods.
the units. Yeah.
Okay, great. And I know, has the city of Redmond determined what funding they're gonna have available for the,
Yeah.
for the,
Acres.
yes, the 45 acres? I know you guys had a meeting, you were gonna have a meeting.
Yeah, so yeah, council's meeting on Monday, the 18th to talk about some general fund excess. And we'll be talking about probably the same number that has been talked about in the meetings you've been at, Commissioner.
Okay,
Tied to managed camp. The next managed camp meeting is December 4th, where we could talk more about the layout, design. Been working with, Eric Kropp on your team to determine what the operational expenses would be for the first couple of years. Mayor Fitz sent a letter to the governor yesterday, actually with the council support as well, that's requesting some of those resources. So just for the benefit of the group, continue to look at how to utilize some amount of that 45 acres to create a campus. The design's happening as we get more of an idea of what we can afford. We can advance the conversations with some of the folks that might be in the camp to see whether they're interested. It's hard to have that conversation when don't know what they're signing up for. But we hope to have a lot more information now, probably early 2025 by the end of January, or every few weeks.
I know, it looks like it was on like about 9 acres, I believe is what you were thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Circle within that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's just based on topography, we're doing some of the early engineering.
Yeah.
Layout, just what those costs might actually entail.
We're going out there with someone with a bulldozer and finding out how many days it will take. Okay, is there anything else on this project? Any other questions on this?
No, just the 131 that's coming back, the top there for the event. So that's money that they're. Because we approved a grant program for the city event last
That's
night.
great. Thank you so much.
This would be helpful because this, I mean, obviously, so much, this was just from October and there's like 4 different things that have changed on this.
Yeah.
And if it is maybe like quarterly, we could have like a little update of like update on this because of how. quickly things
rapidly it
changed.
changed.
That would be helpful to me. To see the big picture.
Okay. Thank you so much for having that in our packet. Very important, and it's great to know that Dean Swift may be opening up by year end. Is that what you're doing? Yeah.
In terms of
great.
Nazarene.
And last weekend with 3 additional safe parking spots.
How many spots?
3.
3, okay. Any other churches added yet? I know it's getting close.
There's one on, at least one on the horizon, and I know there are a couple of safe parking spots that are not associated with the community participation, so we're optimistic that we'll.
I know Rick is very excited about being part of Bend. Yes, thank you for bringing him down there. He's definitely a community asset. All right, so next we have what we have going on in Redmond, the 45-acre project. I know we've talked about it a bit. Did you want to bring it up?
I don't think we have much else to bring to the table until that next meeting. I think we covered where we're going in the path, so until we get some of that budgetary outline and how it's gonna look, there's not much else to talk about.
Well, what I really want to say is that I'm really hoping some of our community could come in, because the cost of establishing it and actually establishing it with a direction, so that we don't just do a temporary homeless camp and then there's no use to it in the future. So if we can do a vision that, like, set it up, make it so that people will move in, but then when they move on and we find ourselves in a better way, that can be incorporated into something in the part of, in
Well,
Redmond.
the way we have it currently set up, Patty, and you've seen the initial plans, is it could turn into an actual RV or temporary camp spot. It's not something that we're just going to have lots of dirt for people to land on. We're trying to make something that would be safe and inviting for people who are trying to get out of a tough situation. That gives them not only the basic necessities, but that safety to go to work or meet appointments.
Right, and you're also saying as the years go by, right, that the use can continue to be something that's relevant beyond, let's say we get to a point in time where we're making great progress in solving homelessness, and it doesn't need to be that specific use in 10 or 15 years, and that it's done in a way that it can continue to have utility. Am I interpreting your brain?
Yeah.
Good, okay,
Interpreting my brain is a little
I know,
difficult
I
some
was
days.
taking it.
But anyway, yeah, no, I think that's great to have a vision, and hopefully we'll have some more people in the community that can actually help come in, maybe do some things at cost, so that we can do something
Oh,
that's,
yes,
yeah, at cost, and you know, and people can be so relieved that they're moving into something that's really safe. And you see that out, you know, all over it, and especially with the number of women that it's increasing, we've got to be safe, and they definitely need safety. So, looks like we have a ask from Eliza at number 8.
Thank you. I have submitted a letter requesting funds to conduct the point in time count for Deschutes County. This is from the HLC board. We're requesting, I tried to outline kind of like why we request these funds. We do not get funds to conduct the point in time count. It is a responsibility of ours. We all, as you all know, it's important to have accurate counts locally, both for our service providers, but also for the cities, so that we can make decisions about those things. And as Chair Adair has pointed out, you know, seeing more women in the community and being able to identify if, you know, what those needs are and why that's occurring. We use the point in time count numbers for that every year, so that we can look at like, who should we be prioritizing for local resources, because we do have fewer resources than people who are experiencing homelessness. So I've kind of outlined the budget, and that way, if there are things that you guys don't want us to afford, we could reduce the ask if that is what you would like to do. We are looking at one of the things that HUD has asked us in our funding application every year is how we included people who are currently unhoused in the count. And you know, we've talked about this with the China pilot. Is like, how great would that be to include people who are in those larger encampments to help with counting, to help with planning the count. But we would really need some kind of more flexible funds to do that. And we don't currently have funds to do those things. Additionally, we do provide incentives to people who complete the survey because it's a very personal survey. So we always do provide a $5 gift card. So these funds would help us pay for 800 gift cards for just Deschutes County. And then as well as supplies. So we try to pass out the hand warmers and then some snacks when we do those outreach events, especially to the larger events.
So do you guys also do Crook and Jefferson County then?
We do, but these funds would only be.
Right, I know.
Yes.
I just want to, okay, and is someone paying for their gift cards and nuts and granola? I
We
mean,
are requesting funds from those.
Okay.
From those counties.
I mean, I think this is absolutely what we should be using our money for. If it gets us better data and a better count, then I'm in full support. And whatever we can be doing to incentivize people to be doing that survey, I think is helpful. And I'm there for it.
Are there any other comments?
I just wanted to know, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot, otherwise, what's the expected turnaround time to receive the data? I mean, is that just sort of sliding scale?
It really, that's a great question. It takes a couple months, because it's gotten better, because we use an app now, but we still have to go through the data and clean it up and make sure that we deduplicate, like if there's are people who did more than one survey, we do all of that, so that takes quite a bit of time. And then our data team and Neighbor Impact, they have to submit it ahead, and then once that's done, then we bring it out to the community. This year, last year, we did have some comments from the community about they wanted to see more data, and so we're looking at like establishing a work group to kind of identify what those things are that each community wants to see, and how they want that information presented to them. And so that is something that we're working on right now in planning.
So speaking of data, Eliza and Molly, we approved some funding to have a better system.
An update on that.
So that would be
Yes.
fabulous to give us an update on what that system looks like and how that might impact our point in time count.
So we have endured a transition of Ben Scott was here doing the presentation previously.
Yep.
So automatically the director of housing has stepped in to take over data. We have just engaged with COIC around contracting with Simtech Solutions, which is the point in time count mobile app that we've been using. And one of the reasons for, just to clarify some points that Eliza made, data cleaning looks like duplication of surveys, but also looks like when we're doing just an observational tally, we have to kind of deal with whether or not those were duplicative or not. So it's easier to have a singular team in one area. Back to the pro update though, the pro funding, we have purchased Tableau. Autumn participated in the National Human Services Data Consortium. She connected with the San Diego, City of San Diego person that built the dashboard that you all loved. And so we've also looked at Simtech's option for account dashboards and are fairly confident that we can actually do that and do a historical look back. And I'm happy to send out the example that they shared was from North Dakota. And they use their HUD data because that's reliable across years to create that timeline. And so the South Dakota data started in 2007. There is a professional report that Simtech is willing to do for the cost of $5,000. That coordinated entry phone, Google phone, so it creates more accessibility for folks and expands capabilities of people providing services for that. Equates to more open hours for the CS hotline. And it's all interrelated. I know I'm jumping around. We had a huge cost savings from our estimate there, so we have space in the money that the pro already awarded to get that professional support. And so we're contemplating that. We're in conversation with COIC and the agency around whether or not that report is something that shares the messaging that we really intend to.
You're talking about a $5,000 report, is that what you just said?
Yep. Yeah, and what that does is that
Already donated.
takes it directly from the data that's been cleaned in the mobile application and looks at trends, looks at projections, creates a really nice infographic that could be shared on the county website, on the city's websites. The conversation that needs to be had with Simtech is if they can get us the data presentation in that report the way that we want it to. So we want cities and counties broken out individually. And there's also been talk, at least from my recollection, that we also want to know, like, if we can isolate Ridge and China Hat and things like that. And there are some geotagging capabilities in there. If we have a paper survey that a volunteer is helping somebody fill out and they don't identify, they just identify Bend, Deschutes County, and they were actually in China Hat. That's a training issue. And because we have service providers doing the count now versus volunteers, it's easier to ask for that. But so that's why we need to know what your preferences are. We're in point in time count planning right now. We have to get the customized questions to SimTech solutions to build into the application. So long story short, CES phone has transitioned to Google phone. We're working on actively training the people that are already using it, and then we'll engage with new members. The Tableau dashboard licensing and reporting tools have been purchased. Autumn has trained on them. She's in conversation to get the report template from San Diego. We're asking, or we're contemplating spending the excess amount on the Google phone, CES phone line item for that professional report from SimTech. And then all the integrated pieces for questions that may come out of the LISIS.
Yeah, it'd be super important for sisters.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it would look like we had zero.
Yeah.
That's not true, because our folks are in the forest and. Yeah.
That's
So
absolutely
that-
right, and like Sun River and like the, yeah, and in Lapine, like where it's very
Yeah.
important.
Very important. So it's wonderful, and I agree, this funding is exactly what I would like to spend some money
So
on.
is that a motion?
Yes, I so move that we approve this as is.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so it's passed. All right, so you've got your 8,000. Since we just got back 131,000.
Yeah. 10,000.
Yes, okay, so number 9, we have Oasis Village.
Yes, we have Josie online and I just promoted her so she can speak.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Thank you for inviting me. I was invited to talk a little bit about lessons learned, but specifically the status of our community development block grants. So I will briefly update you all on that. So CDBG grants are federal, it's HUD dollars. This one came through the city of Redmond, and we back in February applied for $110,560 to pave our walkways between our cabins, pave our fire lane and the front parking spaces in front of our building, as well as extend our fence along Highway 126 for safety issues, because everyone always wants to turn in right there at where it's not an entrance. So we worked with Linda Klein closely on this, and during the environmental review portion, it came back that HUD did not like our proximity to Highway 126 because essentially it posed an auditory hazard. So they basically said you need to go back and as an option and see if you can work with an environmental engineer to see what could be done to mitigate sound and bring down the sound decibels to the proximity of essentially our cabins and where people are sleeping, as it is close to the highway. And so we did not leave money on the table. We still were granted or could be granted the funding. We just had to pivot and reallocate it to work with an environmental engineer, which we have a couple bids. One is from Solera Engineering. It sounds like that's probably who we'll go with, and be able to use those dollars to see what we can do to bring the decibel down. So kind of a bummer, but also I think why we decided to stick with it is we want to be eligible to receive HUD funding in the future. And if we don't do this, then we wouldn't be able to receive HUD funding moving forward. So we need to address it. And so that is the status of that. I don't know if there was other questions or updates you all wanted, but specifically,
Rosie?
yeah.
Commissioner Dare, thank you so much for joining us today. So
Yeah.
is the berm that you guys have done out by the highway, is that changing the decibels then? Is that helping at all?
I don't know because we haven't done the study yet, but it certainly has helped greatly with safety because it's we asked for the fence before we had done the berm with the boulders. So thank you so much for that.
I'm gonna thank Taylor Northwest.
Yeah, absolutely. So it has certainly helped stop people turning in off the highway right there. But as far as reducing sound, we won't know until the actual study's conducted.
Okay, and those 5 cabins, they're gonna be done this month? 5 additional?
By the end of November. Yeah, we've got finish work starting next week. And so with construction, we always hope, but it takes a little longer than usual. But yes, we're hoping to open them up for participants by the end of November. They need finish work and paint.
So will those cabins be able to have heaters and air conditioners for each cabin?
They do. All of our cabins have heaters, and we invested in AC units this summer. They're floor units. They were funded by a grant we got from Pacific Power.
Oh, that's great. How much was that for?
I believe it was for $1,500.
Okay, and it did everybody? That's good use.
Yeah.
No, that's, yeah, because didn't it get really hot this summer? I can't remember. It was like
Smoky air too.
Yeah, yeah.
It did. And with pets who have to stay in the cabins, if the participants go to town for appointments, we just, for safety, we needed to get some airflow in there. So
Great. Oh, does anybody else have any questions for Josie today? No. Thank you so much.
Thanks for the letter. That
Yeah.
was really helpful.
Thank you.
Yes.
okay, awesome. Thank you all.
Great. Any other items? When is our next meeting?
It's scheduled for November 21st. We may want to
Oh.
skip that, cancel that one.
Yeah.
It's in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then the December meeting is scheduled for December 9th.
December 19th. Does that work for everybody? Is everyone in town?
Yes.
Okay, so December 19th, and are we gonna skip then the November 21st? Is that what we?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So sounds like a plan.
Yes.
Okay, everyone's in agreement? All right, so thank you, everyone.
Also, Jessica Gamble had her hand up earlier. I didn't see it, so I don't know if she wanted to speak, or I don't know if Chuck wanted to mention something about the proposal from Home Network. Yeah, I don't know. Okay.
Is she gone now?
She's there. Okay,
Jessica, did you want to say something?
let me promote her. There's a little bit of a delay.
Hi, yes. Can you hear me?
Okay, Jessica, I think you're promoted.
Hi, thank you so much. I have a quick question for Eliza and Molly about the point in time count.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm wondering if it is possible to offer that survey online, have that be digitized or do that over the phone, just because as service providers, getting out into China Hat and Juniper Ridge in January is often impossible due to snow. And a lot of folks will be missed if there's not another way to do that. Whereas if we're able to contact them over the phone to do the survey or offer it online, it would make things more accessible and probably more accurate of a count.
Yeah, so last year we did open up, we used the CES hotline for people to call in to take the survey, so we'll do that again this year. Unfortunately, we're not able to have an online survey that people would just opt into for accuracy purposes. We're just not allowed to do that. HUD does not allow it. But we will have the phone line and I'll be sure to share the flyers when they come out with you and with other providers working in those areas.
Okay, thank you.
Good question, we'll find out. Thank you so much, Jessica. Thanks for that question. All right, meeting is adjourned and we will see you in December.
Segue.